An old man is sitting on a park bench crying his eyes out. A young jogger comes by and asks him what is the matter. The old man says, "I'm a multimillionaire. I have a great big house, the fastest car in the world, and I just married a beautiful blonde bombshell who satisfies me every night in bed whether I like it or not." Sob. The young jogger says, "Man, you have everything I have ever dreamed for in my life. What could be so wrong in your life that you are sitting here in the park crying?" The old man says, "I can't remember where I live." Jock and Jimmy were walking along a street in London. Jock looked in one of the shop windows and saw a sign that caught his eye. The sign read, "Suits £5 each, shirts £2 each, trousers $2,050 per pair." Jock said to his pal, "Look at the prices. We could buy a whole lot of these, and when we get back to Scotland, we could make a fortune. Now when we go in, you stay quiet, okay? Let me do all the talking because if they hear our accents, they might think we are cheap Scotsmen and try to screw us. I'll put on my best London accent." "Okay, Jock, I'll keep my mouth shut," said Jimmy. They go in and Jock says in a posh voice, "Hello, my good man. I'll take 50 suits at £5 each, 100 shirts at £2 each, and 50 pairs of trousers at £2.50 each. I'll back up my truck ready to load them on, old chap." The owner of the shop said quietly, "You're from Scotland, aren't you?" "Well, yes," said a surprised Jock. "What gave it away?" The owner replied, "This is a dry cleaner." An elderly lady phoned her telephone company to report that her telephone failed to ring when her friends called, and that on the few occasions when it did ring, her pet dog always moaned right before the phone rang. The telephone repairman proceeded to the scene, curious to see this psychic dog or senile elderly lady. He climbed a nearby telephone pole, hooked in his test set, and dialed the subscriber's house. The phone didn't ring right away, but then the dog moaned loudly and the telephone began to ring. Climbing down from the pole, the telephone repairman found 1. The dog was tied to the telephone system's ground wire via a steel chain and collar. 2. The wire connection to the ground rod was loose. 3. The dog was receiving 90 volts of signaling current when the phone number was called. 4. After a couple of such jolts, the dog would start moaning and then urinate on himself and the ground. 5. The wet ground would complete the circuit, thus causing the phone to ring, which goes to show that some problems can be fixed by piddling and moaning. A man walks into a restaurant with a full-grown ostrich behind him. As he sits, the waitress comes over and asks for their orders. The man says, "I'll have a hamburger, fries, and a Coke," and turns to the ostrich. "What's yours?" "I'll have the same," says the ostrich. A short time later, the waitress returns with the order. "That will be $6.40, please." And the man reaches into his pocket and pulls out the exact change for payment. The next day, the man and the ostrich come again, and the man says, "I'll have a hamburger, fries, and a Coke." And the ostrich says, "I'll have the same." Once again, the man reaches into his pocket and pays with exact change. This becomes a routine until late one evening, the two enter again. "The usual?" asks the waitress. "No, this is Friday night, so I will have a steak, baked potato, and salad," says the man. "Same for me," says the ostrich. A short time later, the waitress comes with the order and says, "That will be $12.62. Once again, the man pulls exact change out of his pocket and places it on the table. The waitress can't hold back her curiosity any longer. "Excuse me, sir. How do you manage to always come up with the exact change out of your pocket every time?" "Well," says the man, "several years ago I was cleaning the attic and I found an old lamp. When I rubbed it, a genie appeared and offered me 2 wishes. My first wish was that if I ever had to pay for anything, I would just put my hand in my pocket and the right amount of money would always be there." "That's brilliant," says the waitress. "Most people would wish for $1 million or something, but you'll always be as rich as you want for as long as you live." "That's right. Whether it's a gallon of milk or a Rolls-Royce, the exact money is always there, says the man. The waitress asks, "One other thing, sir. What's with the ostrich?" The man sighs, pauses, and answers, "My second wish was for a tall chick with long legs who agrees with everything I say." A man has been sitting at the bar drinking all night. When the bar closes, he is the last one to leave. He stumbles to his car and gets in the back seat. Just then, a cop arrives, and upon seeing the situation, asks the man to get out of his car. "It appears you have had too much this evening, sir. I'm going to have to arrest you for drunk driving." To which the man replies, "Why are you bothering me? I have done nothing wrong. Why don't you go arrest a real criminal? You can start with the jerk that stole my steering wheel." A young curate went to the parish priest and said, "Father, I have a bit of a problem. My bicycle has been stolen and I don't know what to do about it. I don't want to get the police involved because I'm new here, and I don't want to turn the people against me by getting one of them into trouble. If I knew who had taken it, I would have a quiet word and persuade him to return it, but there are at least half a dozen in the congregation who I feel might have taken it as a joke, and I don't want to accuse the wrong person." The priest said, "On Sunday, make your sermon about the 10 Commandments. When you get to 'Thou shalt not steal,' look around the congregation and see who has a guilty look on his face. Then after the sermon, you can have your quiet word." That Sunday afternoon, the priest saw the curate riding his bike through the village. He flagged him down and said, "I see you have your bicycle back. I take it my advice had the desired effect. Did you have any trouble persuading the culprit to return it?" The curate said, "Actually, there was no need for that. I was giving my sermon about the 10 Commandments, but when I got to 'Thou shalt not commit adultery,' I remembered where I'd left the bike. I came home early and found my wife lying naked in bed. She claimed she had just gotten out of the shower. Well, her hair was dry and I checked the shower and it was completely dry too. I knew she was into some hanky-panky and I began to look for her lover. I went onto the balcony of our 9th floor apartment and found the guy clinging to the rail by his fingertips. I was so angry that I began bashing his fingers with a flower pot. He let go and fell, but his fall was broken by some awnings and bushes. On seeing he was still alive, I found superhuman strength to drag our antique cedar chest to the balcony and throw it over. It hit the man and killed him. At this point, the stress got to me, and I suffered a massive heart attack and died. St. Peter thanked him and sent him on to the waiting room. The second applicant said that his last day was his worst. I was on the roof of an apartment building working on the AC equipment, and I stumbled over my tools and toppled off the building. I managed to grab onto the balcony rail of a 9th floor apartment, but some idiot came rushing out on the balcony and bashed my hands with a flower pot. I fell, but hit some awnings and bushes and survived. But as I looked up, I saw a huge chest falling toward me. I tried to crawl out of the way but failed and was hit and killed by the chest. St. Peter couldn't help but chuckle as he directed the man to the waiting room. St. Peter is still giggling when his third customer of the day enters. He apologizes and says, "I doubt that your last day was as interesting as the 2 fellows that arrived here just before you." "I don't know," replies the man. "Picture this. I'm naked, hiding in this cedar chest." Alfred and Jethro ran a small farm and kept a number of animals. They'd been working very hard for many months, and one day Alfred decided that they deserved a night off. So seeing that there was a well-known evangelist appearing in the West End of London, they decided that was just the job for them. So they set off in good time and arrived at the theater and took their seats. The evangelist went through his whole performance, getting people up and persuading them to reveal their innermost thoughts and secrets, until he arrived at the climax of the show. "I want to talk about the afterlife now," he said. "Is there anybody here who has seen a ghost?" Several hands went up. "Is there anybody here who has talked to a ghost?" Again, hands went up, but fewer this time. "Is there anybody here who has been touched by a ghost?" Only a few hands went up this time, Finally, if there is anybody here who has had sex with a ghost, I want them to come up here on the stage. At first, nobody moved. Then suddenly Jethro stood up and started walking towards the stage. Astonished, Alfred shouted out, "Jethro! When did you have sex with a ghost?" "Oh, ghost," replied Jethro. "I thought he said goat." Last week, I took my grandchildren to a restaurant. My 6-year-old grandson asked if he could say grace. As we bowed our heads, he said, "God is good, God is great. Thank you for the food, and I would even thank you more if Grandpa got us ice cream for dessert, and liberty and justice for all. Amen." Along with the laughter from the other customers nearby, I heard a woman remark, "That's what's wrong with this country." Kids today don't even know how to pray. Asking God for ice cream. Why, I never. Hearing this, my grandson burst into tears and asked me, "Did I do it wrong? Is God mad at me?" As I held him and assured him that he had done a terrific job and God was certainly not mad at him, an elderly gentleman approached the table. He winked at my grandson and said, "I happen to know that God thought that was a great prayer." "Really?" my grandson asked. "Cross my heart," the man replied. Then, in a theatrical whisper, he added, indicating the woman whose remark had started this whole thing, "Too bad she never asks God for ice cream. A little ice cream is good for the soul sometimes." Naturally, I bought my grandchildren ice cream at the end of the meal. My grandson stared at his for a moment, and then did something I will remember the rest of my life. He picked up his sundae and, without a word, walked over and placed it in front of the woman. With a big smile, he told her, "Here, this is for you." "Shove it up your bottom, you grouchy old b***. Touches the heart, doesn't it?